I am Ella, 32, and never thought my own sister would betray me. After losing my marketing job suddenly, Samantha looked me in the eyes and doubled my rent to $7,500. The person who I had supported through college called me a burden after years of me helping her family. That night, I packed everything and disappeared without warning. She laughed when I struggled, but karma works faster than anyone expects. Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment, hit that like and subscribe button to see how my sister came crawling back when her perfect life crumbled. Before everything fell apart, I was thriving as a marketing executive at TechVision, a promising startup in Seattle. My 6-figure salary afforded me a comfortable life, but I chose to rent the guest house on my sister Samantha's property instead of buying my own place. Samantha is 6 years older than me at 38, and her husband Jack is 40. They have a stunning 5-bedroom home in one of Seattle's most expensive neighborhoods, with sprawling gardens and a view of the water. Our relationship had always been one where I played the supportive role. When we were younger, our parents struggled financially, so when Samantha wanted to attend college, I deferred my own education to work full-time and help pay her tuition. I waited tables at 3 different restaurants, often sleeping only 4 hours between shifts, just so she could focus on her interior design degree without worrying about money. After she graduated and married Jack, I continued supporting them. When Samantha wanted to start her own interior design business, I gave her $15,000 from my savings to rent her first office space. I never asked for repayment, considering it an investment in family. That was 8 years ago, before her business became the success it is today, catering to Seattle's tech elite and their multi-million-dollar homes. My niece and nephew mean the world to me. Noah is 10, a bright, thoughtful boy who loves science and building things. Lily, at 8, is a creative spirit who reminds me so much of myself at that age, always drawing and telling stories. One of the main reasons I moved into Samantha's guest house 3 years ago was to be closer to the kids, helping with school pickups and weekend activities while their parents focused on their growing businesses. The guest house was lovely, approximately 800 square feet with 1 bedroom, a modern kitchen, and a small office where I often worked late into the night. I paid $3,500 monthly, which was actually market rate for the area, despite Samantha occasionally implying she was giving me a family discount. Our parents passed away within a year of each other when Noah was just a toddler. Dad had a heart attack, and Mom seemed to lose her will to live afterward, succumbing to pneumonia the following winter. Their passing initially brought Samantha and me closer. We were all we had left, and we promised to always look out for each other. I truly believed that promise meant something. As Samantha's design business grew from a one-woman operation to a firm with 8 employees and a waitlist of wealthy clients, I noticed subtle changes in her behavior. The sister who once called me daily to chat began screening my calls. Family dinners shifted from relaxed affairs to networking opportunities where Jack and Samantha paraded their successful friends around their expansive dining room. The couple began taking lavish vacations to places like Bali and the Maldives, leaving the children with me for weeks at a time, which I never minded, but for which I received little gratitude. Despite these warning signs, I maintained my belief in family loyalty. I continued bringing thoughtful gifts to every family gathering, remembered every birthday with personalized presents, and spent countless weekends helping Noah with science projects. I believed that blood is thicker than water, that family would always have your back when times got tough. My own career was flourishing too. I had worked my way up from entry-level marketing coordinator to executive director of marketing at TechVision, leading campaigns that helped the company secure millions in venture capital funding. My boss, Catherine, often told me I was indispensable to the company, and I felt secure in my position despite the volatile nature of startups. Samantha seemed proud of my accomplishments initially, even consulting me on marketing strategies for her design business. We would sit in her sunroom with coffee on Sunday mornings, brainstorming ideas for her social media presence or website redesign. Those moments felt like the sisterly bond I had always wanted, where we could support each other as equals. Jack, an investment banker, maintained a cordial relationship with me, though always with a certain distance. He appreciated the free childcare I provided, but rarely engaged with me on a personal level. I sensed he viewed family connections as potential liabilities rather than strengths, a perspective that would later prove devastatingly accurate. Looking back, I should have recognized that Samantha was changing as her social status rose. The sister who once shared everything with me began guarding information about her finances and business successes. She would casually mention her recent kitchen remodel cost more than my annual salary, then quickly change the subject. The warmth in her eyes when looking at me had been replaced with something closer to assessment, as though constantly evaluating my worth in her life. Still, I remained blind to what was coming. I believed that my contribution to her success and my ongoing role in her children's lives had earned me a permanent place in her heart. I was wrong in ways I could never have imagined, and the price of that misplaced trust would soon become painfully clear. The day everything changed began like any other Tuesday. I arrived at the TechVision office at 7:30, prepared for our weekly marketing strategy meeting. Instead, I found Catherine waiting at my desk, her expression grim. The company had lost its latest round of funding, and immediate cuts were necessary. Despite her earlier assurances about my value, I was among the 30% of employees being let go. I sat in stunned silence as Catherine explained the severance package, 3 months' salary and extended health benefits. Her words sounded distant, as if coming through water. After 5 years of pouring my heart and soul into TechVision, building the marketing department from scratch, I was being discarded like an outdated laptop. By noon, I had cleared out my desk, my personal belongings fitting into a single cardboard box. Colleagues avoided eye contact as I walked through the open office space one final time. Only Marcos, my team member, had the courage to give me a hug and whisper that he would check in on me soon. When I called Samantha from the parking garage, still in shock, she initially responded with compassion. She invited me over for dinner that night, assuring me that everything would be okay. Her voice carried that familiar sisterly warmth I had missed in recent months, and I felt momentarily comforted. Perhaps this crisis would remind us of what truly mattered. That evening over salmon and roasted vegetables, Samantha and Jack expressed appropriate sympathy. Samantha even suggested her contacts might know of openings, while Jack mentioned he could put in a word with clients who might need marketing expertise. I allowed myself to feel hopeful, believing my safety net of family support would cushion this fall. I had always been prudent with money, saving approximately 20% of each paycheck. With my savings and severance package, I calculated I could maintain my current lifestyle for about 6 months without income. This seemed more than sufficient time to secure a new position, given my experience and track record. The first month of job hunting proved more challenging than anticipated. Seattle technology companies were experiencing a downturn, with hiring freezes across the industry. Interviews that initially seemed promising ended with polite emails about pursuing other candidates. My confidence began to waver with each rejection. Samantha watched my struggle with increasing impatience. What began as supportive questions about my job search transformed into pointed comments about my spending habits. When I bought Noah a science kit for his birthday, she remarked that perhaps unemployed people should reconsider purchasing gifts. The comment stung, especially considering the kit cost only $40, a fraction of what Samantha spent on wine for dinner parties. 2 months into my unemployment, Jack invited me to dinner at an expensive steakhouse, supposedly to introduce me to a colleague who needed marketing help. I spent hours preparing, researching the company, and developing ideas to pitch. When I arrived, Jack was alone, explaining his contact had canceled last minute. Throughout dinner, he questioned my career choices, suggesting I had been too loyal to TechVision instead of looking out for myself. His promised connections never materialized. As my savings dwindled, anxiety became my constant companion. Each morning I woke with a tightness in my chest, scrolling through job listings before even getting out of bed. I cut all unnecessary expenses, canceled my streaming subscriptions, and stopped meeting friends for coffee. The psychological toll of unemployment went beyond financial concerns, eating away at my sense of identity and purpose. Family gatherings at Samantha House, once a highlight of my week, became exercises in humiliation. Samantha introduced me to her friends as her sister who was between jobs, her tone suggesting this was a permanent state rather than a temporary setback. I noticed being seated farther from the center of the table, literally and figuratively pushed to the periphery of family life. Only Noah and Lily treated me the same, their love untainted by adult concepts of status and success. Noah still asked for help with his homework, and Lily continued sharing her artwork with the same enthusiasm. Their uncomplicated affection became my emotional lifeline during increasingly difficult family interactions. 3 months into my job search, I took a part-time position at a local marketing agency, handling social media for small businesses. The pay was barely a third of my previous salary, but it provided structure to my days and slowed the depletion of my savings. I did not share this development with Samantha, sensing her disappointment that I had accepted something so beneath my qualifications. Despite paying my rent on time each month, I began noticing Samantha inspecting the guest house when she thought I was not home. Once, I returned early from an interview to find her in my kitchen, ostensibly dropping off mail but clearly assessing the space. When questioned, she mentioned vaguely that she was considering renovations, though she offered no timeline or details. Jack started suggesting weekend activities that required significant spending, then expressing surprise when I declined. Weekend trips to wine country or shopping excursions to Portland were proposed as if my financial situation had not changed. Each refusal widened the growing chasm between us. By the 4th month, the strain was showing in every interaction. Samantha would sigh heavily when I mentioned promising job leads, as if my optimism was an irritation rather than something to encourage. When I helped Lily with a school project one afternoon, Samantha interrupted repeatedly, eventually suggesting that perhaps I should focus on my own work rather than distracting her daughter. The reality of my vulnerability was becoming clearer each day. The family I had sacrificed for, supported, and loved unconditionally viewed me differently now that I needed support in return. I was experiencing the painful truth that some relationships only flourish in certain conditions, wilting when the balance of power shifts. As my job search entered its 5th month, Samantha criticism grew more pointed. What began as gentle nudging evolved into outright questioning of my efforts. One Sunday morning, as I helped clear breakfast dishes, she asked if I was really submitting applications daily or just browsing listings. The implication that I might be lazy rather than facing a challenging market left me speechless. Jack joined this new narrative, suggesting that perhaps I was being too selective. Over dinner, he listed friends who had switched industries entirely after setbacks, questioning why I remained focused on marketing roles. When I explained that my decade of specialized experience was valuable and that changing fields would mean starting over at entry level, he dismissed my reasoning as pride. The first time I was explicitly excluded from a family event came in the form of a casual mention. Samantha referenced the wonderful time they had at a lake house the previous weekend, a property owned by family friends where we had all vacationed together for years. When I asked why I had not been invited, she blinked in surprise and said she assumed I would want to save money rather than split the costs. The fact that she had not even given me the option was telling. The most painful betrayal came unexpectedly, overhearing Samantha on the phone with her friend Diana. I had stopped by to drop off a birthday gift for Jack and was about to announce my presence when I heard Samantha's voice from the kitchen. My sister, my only living family, referred to me as a charity case who did not seem to understand when she had overstayed her welcome. She laughed as she told Diana that having me around was like having a third child, one who did not even provide the joy that balanced the burden of actual children. I stood frozen in the hallway, the wrapped gift heavy in my hands, as tears filled my eyes. The humiliation reached new heights at a dinner party Samantha hosted for clients and friends. 8 couples gathered in her dining room, the table set with fine china and crystal that sparkled under the chandelier light. I had been included as an afterthought, seated at the far end between an elderly accountant and an empty chair. Throughout the evening, Samantha's friend Victoria repeatedly questioned my career choices, suggesting that marketing was becoming obsolete in the age of artificial intelligence. Rather than defend me, Samantha nodded along, adding that perhaps this was why I was having trouble finding suitable employment. The conversation continued around me as if I were a case study rather than a person sitting at the table. Financial pressure mounted as my severance package ended. The part-time agency work covered only about 40% of my expenses. I began taking additional freelance projects, working late into the night designing social media campaigns for local restaurants and retail shops. These small businesses could not afford standard rates, but something was better than nothing. Despite these efforts, my savings continued to diminish. I calculated that at the current rate, I had approximately 2 months before financial crisis would force difficult decisions. Still, I continued paying the full $3,500 rent to Samantha, often transferring the money before paying other bills. Samantha's response to my continued payments was not gratitude but apparent resentment that grew with each passing week. I began to suspect that my presence represented something uncomfortable for her. A reminder perhaps that success could be fleeting, that circumstances could change for anyone. The children noticed the tension, their innocent observations cutting straight to the heart of the matter. One afternoon, while helping Noah with multiplication tables, he looked up and asked why Mommy was always angry at me now. Before I could formulate an age-appropriate response, Lily chimed in that Daddy said Auntie Ella was having a hard time being a grown-up. The casual cruelty of this characterization to their children shook me deeply. My attempts to address the growing rift met with deflection. When I suggested coffee to discuss our relationship, Samantha claimed back-to-back client meetings. When I tried to speak with her after Sunday dinner, she suddenly remembered urgent emails requiring immediate attention. Jack was equally unavailable, his usual excuse being important calls with international clients in different time zones. The emotional toll began affecting my health. I lost weight, my clothes hanging loosely on my frame. Sleep became elusive, my nights spent cycling through job listings and worst-case scenarios. Dark circles formed permanent residences beneath my eyes, and my normally lustrous hair became dull and brittle from stress. Through mutual friends, I learned that Samantha's business was thriving, with a waiting list of tech executives seeking her design expertise for their multi-million-dollar homes. This success seemed to correlate directly with her diminishing empathy. The sister who had once shared her last piece of chocolate now guarded her good fortune, as if compassion were a finite resource that might run out if too freely given. The painful realization crystallized slowly. Samantha did not view me as family to be supported through difficulty, but as competition, whose struggle somehow validated her own success. Perhaps my presence as a formerly successful professional, now experiencing setback, threatened her narrative that her achievements were solely the result of her superior talents and choices, rather than also involving privilege, timing, and the support of others, including me. This understanding did not ease the pain, but at least made sense of the inexplicable coldness from someone who shared my blood and history. As this awareness settled into my consciousness, I began to recognize that the relationship I thought we had might have existed only in my imagination, a sisterly bond I had constructed largely through my own actions of love and sacrifice, rather than reciprocal care. 6 months into my job search, I received the rejection that would ultimately change everything. After 3 rounds of promising interviews with a marketing firm that specialized in sustainable businesses, including a comprehensive marketing plan I had spent days developing, the polite email arrived. They had selected an internal candidate, appreciating my expertise but unable to offer me the position. This role had represented not just employment but alignment with my values, and the rejection hit harder than all previous ones combined. I returned to the guest house emotionally drained, my professional confidence at its lowest point since being let go from TechVision. As I trudged up the stone path, I noticed Samantha's car in the driveway, hours earlier than her usual return time. A sense of foreboding settled over me as I entered to find her sitting at my kitchen counter, back straight, expression unreadable. Without preliminaries, she informed me that the family had been discussing my situation. Her tone was that of an authority figure, addressing a problematic subordinate, rather than a sister speaking to her only sibling. The guest house, she explained, had become more valuable as her business expanded. She needed the space for client consultations and material storage. What came next still echoes in my mind during quiet moments. Samantha stated that my rent would increase to $7,500 monthly, effective immediately, more than double what I had been paying. When I gasped at the figure, she continued without pause, explaining that this represented the true market value of the space, and that she had been subsidizing me long enough. The word burden fell from her lips so casually it took a moment to register. I had become a burden on their family, she said. My ongoing unemployment was an embarrassment when they entertained business associates. My presence was complicating their lives in ways I apparently could not understand from my position of neediness. As I struggled to form words through my shock, Jack appeared in the doorway. I turned to him, hoping for some intervention, or at least recognition, of the cruelty unfolding. Instead, he nodded along with Samantha's assertions, adding that they had been more than generous already, allowing me to stay at below market rent for months during my situation. As if losing a job were a moral failing rather than a circumstance that could befall anyone in a volatile economy. As if I had not supported Samantha through years of her situation as a struggling student and fledgling business owner. The ultimatum was presented as a business decision: pay the increased amount or vacate within 30 days. Samantha had already drafted a document outlining these terms, which she slid across the counter toward me. The official nature of this document, clearly prepared with legal consultation, confirmed that this was not an emotional outburst, but a calculated decision they had considered carefully. I sat motionless as they outlined their plans for converting my living space into a design studio, speaking about the walls that would be removed and the fixtures that would be updated. As if I were already gone, my presence in the space merely a temporary inconvenience in their renovation timeline. Through dinner that evening, a previously planned gathering with two of their couple friends, I moved through a fog of disbelief. Samantha announced my impending move to their guests casually over appetizers, framing it as an exciting step toward my independence, rather than the eviction it actually was. When her friend expressed surprise given my employment situation, Samantha laughed lightly and said, "Sometimes people needed a push to get their lives in order." That push apparently included humiliating me in front of acquaintances who now looked at me with a mixture of pity and discomfort. I excused myself early, unable to continue the performance of normalcy while my world collapsed around me. Later that evening, a soft knock at my door revealed Noah and Lily in their pajamas, having snuck out of the main house after their parents thought they were asleep. Noah clutched his dinosaur piggy bank, and Lily held her unicorn one, both children solemnly offering their saved allowance to help me pay the rent. Noah explained that he had overheard Mommy and Daddy talking about money problems being the reason I had to leave. The innocence of their gesture, the purity of their love compared to their parents' calculation, broke something open inside me. I hugged them tightly, assuring them that I would be fine, and that they should keep their savings. After walking them back to the main house, I returned to my soon-to-be former home and truly saw it for the first time in months. This space that I had believed represented family connection now felt like a gilded cage, one where my worth was measured strictly in financial terms. The realization that I was not welcome, that my presence was tolerated only as long as it served Samantha and Jack interests, settled into my bones with cold clarity. I would not stay where I was not wanted. I would not endure 30 days of sidelong glances and pointed comments about my job search or spending habits. I would not subject myself to further humiliation as Samantha paraded her successful friends through my home, treating me as an object lesson in failure. Most importantly, I would not allow my niece and nephew to witness their parents treating family as disposable. I could not control what Samantha and Jack taught their children through example, but I could remove myself from the equation, preserving my dignity and perhaps providing a different lesson about self-worth and boundaries. The decision crystallized as I sat on my bed until 3 a.m, cycling through anger, grief, and finally, resolve. I would leave not in 30 days, but immediately. The sister who had once been my closest ally had made her choice, prioritizing additional square footage over our relationship. I would make mine, choosing self-respect over continued degradation. As dawn approached, my path became clear. I would not fight, argue, or beg. I would simply remove myself from the equation entirely, leaving Samantha and Jack with the empty space they apparently valued more than my presence in their lives. The thought brought a strange sense of peace, the first I had felt in months of growing tension and anxiety. That night, after confirming Samantha, Jack, and the children were asleep, I began packing methodically. Years of life condensed into suitcases and boxes, each item evaluated for necessity and emotional value. My collection of marketing books, accumulated over a decade of professional growth, filled 6 boxes, Clothes required 4 suitcases, professional attire separated from casual wear. Personal mementos, photographs, and gifts from the children were wrapped carefully in tissue paper and placed in a special box marked precious. Working silently with only the soft glow of lamps to guide me, I transformed my home of 3 years into categorized containers ready for transit. Furniture and large items would need to be left behind, but they were replaceable. What mattered were the irreplaceable items. Tangible connections to my life before everything changed. At 2 a.m, I called Taylor, my best friend since college. Despite the hour, she answered on the 3rd ring, her voice alert after hearing my unusual timing. When I explained the situation, her response was immediate and unhesitating, offering her spare bedroom for as long as I needed. This unconditional support, so contrasted with my sister treatment, brought tears to my eyes for the first time that night. Before leaving, I wrote 3 letters. The first was for Noah and Lily, explaining that I was moving to a new home but would always love them and be part of their lives, regardless of distance. I included my phone number and email, telling them they could reach out anytime they needed their Auntie Ella. This letter I sealed in an envelope with their names written in my neatest handwriting. The second letter was practical, a formal notification that I was vacating the property, referencing the unexpected change in terms, and noting that I had left the space in excellent condition. This letter was attached to an envelope containing exactly $3,500 in cash for my final month of rent, the full amount we had agreed upon originally. The third letter was the hardest to write, addressed to Samantha. In it, I avoided accusations or emotional language, simply stating that her decision to more than double my rent had forced me to make other arrangements immediately. I thanked her for the time I had lived there and wished her well with her expanding business. The brevity and neutrality of this letter represented perhaps the most difficult exercise in restraint I had ever undertaken. As dawn light began filtering through the windows, I placed all 3 letters on the kitchen counter of the main house, using my key one final time. Next to them, I left my house keys and security fob, physical symbols of my departure from their lives. My car, a reliable Toyota that had seen me through years of commuting, was packed to capacity by 5:30 in the morning. One last look at the guest house, at the gardens where I had helped the children plant sunflowers last spring, at the kitchen window where Samantha and I had once stood side by side washing dishes and sharing secrets. Then I drove away, the quiet neighborhood fading in my rearview mirror along with the relationship I had believed would last a lifetime. Taylor lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment across town. A 30-minute drive that gave me time to process the magnitude of what I had just done. She was waiting at the door when I arrived, arms open, coffee brewing. No questions, no judgment, just acceptance and support as I brought in the essentials for my first night away from what had been home. The first call from Samantha came at 8:15 that morning, likely when she discovered the letters and keys. I let it go to voicemail. Not yet ready for the conversation that would inevitably follow. Her message began with confusion, transitioned quickly to anger, demanding to know where I was and accusing me of childish behavior in leaving without discussion. No acknowledgement of her role, no recognition of the impossibility of her demands. By noon, the voicemails had shifted in tone. The 6th message included the first hint of concern beneath the frustration. By evening, there was a trace of panic in her voice as she realized I truly had disappeared without providing a forwarding address or contact plan. Jack also called, his messages more measured but equally lacking in self-awareness, suggesting we meet to discuss my overreaction to their reasonable business decision. Taylor apartment became my sanctuary that first week. We established a routine, sharing breakfast before she left for her job as a physical therapist. Me spending days applying for positions and adjusting to my new reality. Her small 2nd bedroom fit only a twin bed and desk, but the walls were my own, the space free from judgment or conditional acceptance. Surprisingly, the emotional aftermath of my departure included significant relief alongside the expected grief. The constant tension of the previous months, the walking on eggshells around Samantha and Jack, had taken a toll I had not fully recognized until it was gone. Despite unemployment and uncertainty, I slept more soundly in Taylor's spare room than I had in months at the guest house. The children found ways to reach me, their resourcefulness touching and heartbreaking. Noah first called from the school phone during lunch period, his voice small but determined, as he asked if I was okay and when he would see me again. Lily joined these calls when she could, both children keeping our communications secret from their parents, an unfortunate lesson in necessary deception I wish they had not needed to learn. Through these conversations, I learned that Samantha had told them I left because I found a wonderful new job that required relocation. This fiction, while kinder than the truth, added another layer of complexity to an already painful situation. I chose not to contradict their mother's story directly, but assured them that regardless of jobs or homes, my love for them remained constant. Samantha and Jack's efforts to locate me intensified in those first weeks. They contacted mutual friends, showing up at restaurants and cafes I frequented, even driving past Taylor Building once, though they apparently did not know which apartment was hers. I maintained my distance, not out of cruelty but self-preservation, knowing I needed time and space to rebuild my foundation before engaging with the people who had so casually shattered it. 1 month after my departure, I received a formal letter from Samantha, through a mutual friend, stating that my remaining possessions would be placed in storage at my expense, if not collected within 14 days. The businesslike tone confirmed that my sister had committed fully to her role as landlord rather than family, treating my departure as a tenant issue rather than a fracture in our relationship. Taylor helped me rent a small moving truck, and together with 2 other friends, we retrieved my furniture and remaining boxes on a Tuesday, when Samantha's business schedule ensured her absence. The efficiency with which we emptied the guest house, now half converted to a design studio, felt like the final chapter closing on that part of my life. Storage fees for my larger items added another expense to my stretched budget. But the physical reclamation of my possessions represented an important step in reclaiming my independence. Each item carried memories, some painful in their associations with Samantha home, but they were mine, tangible proof of my life and choices. Throughout this difficult transition, the unexpected gift was discovering who truly constituted family. Taylor, who rearranged her apartment and adjusted her schedule to accommodate me. Marcos, my former colleague, who connected me with freelance opportunities despite his own precarious employment. Even Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor from years before, who insisted on cooking extra portions of her famous dumplings when she heard about my situation. These connections, based not on blood but on genuine care, sustained me through the darkest moments of doubt and grief. They offered not just practical support but reminders that my worth existed independent of professional status or Samantha approval, that I was valued simply for being Ella, with all my strengths and vulnerabilities intact. This realization brought a profound peace amid turmoil. As weeks turned to months in my temporary living arrangement, I began to recognize that what had initially felt like an ending was actually a beginning. Painful, but necessary. The path forward was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it would be truly my own, uncomplicated by the weight of a relationship that had become more obligation than connection. 2 months after my abrupt departure from Samantha home, Taylor mentioned that her physical therapy clinic was struggling with patient outreach. Their website was outdated, social media practically non-existent, and new patient numbers declining despite excellent care. Without overthinking, I offered to help, creating a simple marketing plan over a weekend that focused on their unique approach to rehabilitation. This small favor became my first consistent client. The clinic director, impressed with the immediate increase in website traffic and appointment requests, offered a monthly retainer for ongoing marketing services. The amount was modest but represented the first steady income since my part-time agency work, which had ended shortly after my move when the company downsized. With this single client as proof of concept, I began reaching out to other small healthcare providers in the area, positioning myself as a marketing consultant, specializing in medical practices. By the 3rd month post-departure, I had secured 3 additional clients, each paying between $1,000 and $2,000 monthly for customized marketing strategies. My studio apartment, found through a connection of Taylor, became both home and office. Located in a converted industrial building, the space was smaller than the guest house, but entirely mine, free from associations with conditional acceptance or familial obligation. I furnished it minimally at first, focusing on creating a functional workspace with reliable internet and proper lighting for video calls with clients. The freedom to decorate according to my preferences alone proved unexpectedly therapeutic. No consideration of Samantha design sensibilities, no concern for maintaining a certain aesthetic to please others. The blue wall paint she would have considered garish brought me joy each morning, a small but significant reclamation of autonomy. 4 months into my new life, Marcos reached out with an intriguing proposition. Now working at a mid-size marketing firm, he had mentioned my situation to his director, who was interested in my experience with startup marketing. The resulting consultation revealed a company with solid core services but struggling to differentiate itself in a crowded market. My proposal was straightforward. A complete repositioning focused on helping businesses that were struggling or undergoing transitions. Drawing on my personal experience with professional setbacks. Rather than competing for already successful clients, they could target companies needing revitalization. A niche largely ignored by established agencies focused on maintaining rather than rebuilding. The director was initially skeptical but agreed to implement my strategies with 3 existing clients who were considering terminating their contracts. The results exceeded expectations, with all 3 not only continuing services but increasing their engagement. Within weeks, the director approached me with an offer to join as a consultant on a project basis, leading what they now called the Business Revival Division. This opportunity provided not just income but professional validation at a critical juncture. My approach to marketing, informed by personal experience with loss and recovery, resonated with businesses facing similar challenges. What Samantha had viewed as failure became valuable perspective. My setback transformed into insight that clients found uniquely valuable. Throughout this professional rebuilding, I maintained secret contact with Noah and Lily. Our video calls, conducted during school lunch periods or when they visited friends with understanding parents, became highlights of my week. I watched them grow through the small screen, Noah losing a tooth, Lily mastering a difficult piano piece. These connections, though complicated by necessary secrecy, preserved an essential part of my identity as their aunt. Through mutual friends, news about Samantha's life occasionally reached me. Her design business continued expanding, with features in local magazines and growing prominence in Seattle social circles. Yet, alongside these successes came whispers of difficulties, projects running over budget, clients expressing dissatisfaction with delays and communication issues. These rumors provided no satisfaction, only a distant sadness at the apparent cost of her success. 6 months after leaving, I reached a significant milestone: financial stability. Between my growing roster of clients and the consulting work with Marcos' firm, my income had rebounded to approximately 70% of my previous salary. This, combined with significantly reduced living expenses, allowed me to begin rebuilding savings and planning for long-term security. This stability manifested in small luxuries reclaimed. Bookstore visits without anxiety about the total. Occasional dinner with friends, where I could pick up the check. A new winter coat purchased without calculating how many meals it represented. These ordinary actions, once taken for granted, now carried profound significance as markers of independence regained. The pivotal moment in my professional resurrection came unexpectedly. A local business journal was featuring companies that helped struggling businesses recover from setbacks. The journalist, having worked with one of my clients, requested an interview about my marketing approach. The resulting article, titled "The Business Resurrection Specialist," detailed my methodology of honesty, strategic repositioning, and authentic narrative development for companies in transition. This single piece of publicity generated more interest than 6 months of networking. Within days, my phone rang continuously, with businesses seeking consultation. The most significant call came from Health Tech Solutions, a medical technology company whose recent product launch had underperformed despite significant investment. They requested a full proposal for repositioning their brand in the competitive healthcare technology market. The preparation for this pitch consumed 2 weeks of intensive research and strategy development. I analyzed their current positioning, identified disconnect between their technology capabilities and market perception, and developed a comprehensive plan for authentic reintroduction to their target audience. The resulting 70-page proposal represented the culmination of everything I had learned through personal and professional rebuilding. The presentation to their executive team, scheduled for 90 minutes, extended to 3 hours as their questions and engagement deepened. 2 days later, their CEO called personally to offer a 6-month contract worth more than my previous annual salary at Tech Vision, with potential for ongoing relationship afterward. This single client would transform my consulting work from sustainable to thriving. With this contract secured, I made the decision to establish formally what had been evolving organically. Phoenix Marketing Consultancy was registered as a limited liability company, the name reflecting both personal resurrection and the service provided to clients. The company focused exclusively on businesses navigating transitions, setbacks, or identity crises, offering not just marketing services but comprehensive rebuilding strategies. The first official office space, a small 2-room suite in a professional building, represented another milestone in my journey. As I arranged furniture and technology in the space, I reflected on the contrast between this moment and the morning I had driven away from Samantha home, with possessions hastily packed and future uncertain. Both involved new beginnings, but this one came from choice rather than necessity. Within 9 months of being called a burden by my sister, I had not only stabilized my life but created something entirely new and unexpectedly successful. The company grew quickly, necessitating hiring an assistant and then a junior consultant to manage the expanding client roster. My reputation as a specialist in marketing through transition periods spread through business networks, creating demand that required careful management to maintain quality. This professional renaissance brought personal healing as well. The confidence eroded by months of unemployment and family rejection gradually returned, strengthened by the knowledge that I had rebuilt, not just despite adversity, but partially because of it. My experience of loss and recovery directly informed the value I now provided to clients, transforming what had been painful into something productive. Through these months of growth and change, I maintained physical distance from Samantha and Jack, though they remained present in my thoughts. The children continued to be my only connection to that part of my life. Our relationship conducted through technology and occasional secret meetings at school events. This arrangement, while imperfect, preserved what mattered most while protecting the boundaries necessary for my well-being. The irony was not lost on me that in losing what I had believed essential, my sister's approval and support, I had found strengths previously untested and created opportunities previously unimagined. The path had been painful beyond description, but had led to a destination I could not have envisioned during those dark days of rejection and uncertainty. Exactly 6 months after securing the Health Tech Solutions contract, my assistant Rachel interrupted a client meeting with an urgent message. Samantha was on the phone, insisting on speaking with me immediately regarding a family emergency. After years of marketing work, I recognized urgency tactics, but concern for the children overrode skepticism. I excused myself and took the call in my private office. No greeting, no acknowledgement of our estrangement. Samantha's voice, typically controlled and confident, sounded strained as she launched directly into her situation. Her design business was facing potential bankruptcy following 3 significant project failures. Clients had filed lawsuits alleging breach of contract, and suppliers were demanding immediate payment of outstanding invoices. The details emerged through her fragmented explanation: overexpansion, without proper infrastructure, accepting projects beyond her team capabilities, cash flow mismanagement during rapid growth, all understandable mistakes for a business, experiencing success without proper guidance, but devastating in their consequences. When she finally paused for breath, the actual purpose of the call became clear. She needed $200,000 within 10 days to satisfy immediate obligations and prevent complete business collapse. She was asking me, the sister she had cast aside as a burden during my own financial crisis, for rescue from hers. The irony hung heavy in the air between us. I remained silent, allowing the moment to stretch, not from cruelty but to process the extraordinary reversal unfolding. Samantha filled the silence with justifications and promises of repayment, her voice growing increasingly desperate as my response remained forthcoming. When I finally spoke, I asked one question. Had she exhausted all other options? Her reply confirmed what I suspected. Banks had denied additional credit, given pending litigation. Jack's investment portfolio had suffered significant losses in recent months. Friends and business associates had proven reluctant to invest in a company with legal complications. I was her last resort, the final call after all other doors had closed. The universe has a remarkable sense of timing and symmetry. 1 year earlier, almost to the day, I had sat in her kitchen as she informed me my presence was a burden and my rent would double. Now she sat in her office as her business crumbled, asking for help from the very person she had discarded. I could have ended the call there, could have responded with the same coldness she had shown me, telling her that her business problems were not my concern. The temptation existed, momentarily, like a shadow passing across my consciousness. But vengeance, however justified, would have changed me in ways I refused to allow. Instead, I told her I would consider her request and needed to review my commitments before making any decision. The relief in her voice was palpable, though premature. I had not agreed to anything, merely postponed rejection. After ending the call, I sat motionless in my office, contemplating the complex emotions this unexpected development had triggered. That evening, I reviewed Phoenix Marketing's financial position and my personal resources. The company was thriving, with reliable cash flow and growing reserves. I could, technically, provide the amount Samantha needed without jeopardizing business operations. The question was not one of ability, but of wisdom and principle. 2 days later, I called Samantha and proposed a meeting at my office, rather than transferring funds blindly. Her agreement was immediate, the luxury of pride long abandoned in her desperation. When she arrived the following morning, the physical changes in her appearance spoke volumes about recent months. Weight loss, dark circles beneath her eyes, tension evident in every movement. She bore the unmistakable markers of prolonged stress that I recognized from my own experience. My office, though modest compared to her design studio at its peak, now represented the power shift between us. The Phoenix Marketing logo displayed prominently on the wall behind my desk, framed press clippings highlighting successful client transformations, industry awards received during our rapid growth. All visible reminders that I had not merely survived her rejection, but thrived beyond it. As Samantha explained her situation in greater detail, I listened with professional attentiveness rather than sisterly emotion. The problems she described were common among businesses experiencing rapid success: insufficient systems, premature expansion, inadequate financial controls. Her design talent remained exceptional, but the business infrastructure had not developed alongside client acquisition. When she finished and awaited my financial commitment, I offered something different, not a loan or gift, but a professional service. Phoenix Marketing specialized in exactly the type of business crisis her company faced. We could develop a comprehensive recovery strategy, negotiate with creditors, rebuild client confidence, and implement sustainable growth practices. Her initial confusion gave way to incredulity as she realized I was offering business services rather than direct financial assistance. The proposal I presented included a complete audit of her business operations, development of recovery strategies, and implementation of systems to prevent future crises. The cost, while substantial, represented a significant discount from our standard rates, reflecting the family connection despite everything that had transpired. Most importantly, the proposal required her active participation and commitment to fundamental changes in how she operated her business. This was not a bailout but a partnership in reconstruction, one that would address root causes rather than merely treating symptoms. It would require her to acknowledge mistakes, accept guidance, and rebuild with greater wisdom. The conversation that followed revealed more about Samantha's state of mind than any previous interaction. Initially defensive, she questioned why I would not simply provide the money she needed. This gave way to anger at what she perceived as enjoying her downfall, followed by bargaining, and finally, as the reality of her situation fully registered, a quiet acceptance that this offer represented her best option for salvaging what remained of her business. We signed the consulting agreement that afternoon, establishing clear boundaries between personal history and professional relationship. Phoenix Marketing would treat Samantha Design as any other client, with the same expectations and deliverables. The family connection would neither advantage nor disadvantage her in terms of the service provided. The weeks that followed required intensive intervention. My team conducted comprehensive analysis of her business operations, identifying critical weaknesses and immediate priorities. We negotiated extended payment terms with suppliers, developed settlement proposals for dissatisfied clients, and restructured internal processes to prevent recurrence of the issues that had precipitated crisis. Throughout this professional engagement, personal healing began cautiously. Working together required communication beyond business matters. Conversations gradually expanded to include careful acknowledgement of past events, though neither of us was ready to address fully the damage done. This measured reconnection, governed by professional parameters, provided safe context for initial steps toward potential reconciliation. 1 month into the business recovery process, Noah and Lily discovered my involvement with their mother company. The secret video calls that had continued throughout our estrangement suddenly included excited questions about my presence in their parents' conversations. Their joy at the prospect of family reconciliation both warmed and cautioned my heart, awareness of their emotional investment adding complexity to an already delicate situation. The first true personal breakthrough came unexpectedly during a strategy session at Samantha's office. While reviewing client communication protocols, she abruptly stopped mid-sentence, eyes filling with tears as she admitted that my marketing approach to difficult conversations mirrored what she should have done with me during my unemployment. This small acknowledgement, offered in professional context, represented the first crack in the wall between us. Jack's initial response to my involvement had been skepticism bordering on hostility. The investment banker viewed business recovery as simple mathematics, rather than the complex human and systemic challenge it actually represented. Our first meetings were tense, his questioning of my qualifications transparent in both content and tone. The turning point in this dynamic came during a difficult negotiation with one of Samantha's largest clients, who was threatening legal action over project delays. Jack witnessed firsthand my team's ability to transform potential disaster into workable compromise, preserving both financial interests and business relationships. His gradual shift from adversary to cautious ally marked another step in the family business healing process. 3 months into the engagement, Samantha's business showed measurable improvement. Cash flow stabilized, client complaints decreased significantly, and team morale improved through clearer communication and expectations. The company remained smaller than its peak, having shed unsustainable projects and overhead, but now operated on solid foundation with potential for healthy growth. As the professional relationship proved successful, personal conversations became possible. Over coffee one afternoon, in the neutral territory of a cafe midway between our offices, Samantha finally addressed what had happened between us directly. Her apology, while imperfect, acknowledged the cruelty of her actions during my period of vulnerability and expressed genuine regret for prioritizing space and status over our relationship. This conversation, painful but necessary, revealed the insecurities beneath her actions. Success had created fear of losing status, of returning to the financial instability of our childhood. My unemployment had triggered those fears, making her see me as threat rather than sister in need of temporary support. This understanding did not excuse her behavior, but provided context that allowed me to view our rift through more compassionate lens. The children became unwitting architects of our continued reconciliation. Noah's science fair required family attendance, creating the first situation where Samantha, Jack, and I would appear together publicly since my departure. For the children's sake, we maintained cordial interaction throughout the event, our adult conflicts temporarily set aside to celebrate Noah's achievement. This public reunion led to tentative invitation for Sunday dinner the following weekend. Entering their home for the first time in over a year, I experienced complex emotions, memories of both belonging and rejection associated with the familiar spaces. The guest house, now fully converted to design studio, stood as physical reminder of what had changed irreversibly. Dinner conversation remained carefully neutral, focused on the children's activities and general topics. Only after Noah and Lily were in bed did Samantha raise the question that had likely motivated the invitation. With business stabilized but not yet thriving, she wondered if I would consider ongoing consulting relationship beyond our initial agreement. This professional need created bridge for personal relationship to continue developing alongside it. The first holiday after reconciliation began, Thanksgiving, presented both opportunity and challenge. Rather than navigating the loaded symbolism of returning to Samantha home for the occasion, I suggested neutral alternative, hosting dinner at my newly purchased townhouse. This 3-bedroom property, acquired with the success of Phoenix marketing, represented tangible evidence of my journey from displacement to stability. Preparing the meal together in my kitchen, Samantha and I found rhythm reminiscent of earlier times, before success and struggle complicated our connection. Cooking had always been shared language between us, and the familiar choreography of holiday preparation allowed conversation to flow more naturally than in formal settings. Small revelations and acknowledgments emerged between discussions of roasting times and seasoning preferences. As months became a year, our professional relationship evolved into more balanced partnership. Samantha Business, though never returning to its former size, developed sustainable model focused on quality rather than quantity. My company continued growing, expanding into new markets while maintaining core focus on businesses in transition. The complementary nature of our professional expertise created ongoing opportunities for collaboration that benefited both companies. The personal healing progressed more gradually than business recovery, each small step forward occasionally followed by setbacks when old patterns emerged. Complete restoration of trust remained work in progress. The damage done, not easily repaired despite mutual desire for reconciliation. What emerged instead was new relationship, different from what had existed before, with clearer boundaries and more honest communication. Noah and Lily thrived with the return of family stability, though the experience had left its mark on their understanding of relationships. Noah developed interest in conflict resolution, mediating playground disputes with surprising skill for a child his age. Lily Art reflected themes of separation and reunion, processing through creativity what she had experienced emotionally. 2 years after Samantha's desperate phone call, I hosted family Christmas gathering at my home. The evening represented culmination of gradual rebuilding, not perfect but authentic in its acknowledgement of both damage and healing. As we exchanged gifts beside decorated tree, the contrast with my solitary Christmas 2 years prior provided powerful reminder of life's unpredictable paths. The business lesson from our journey proved valuable beyond family context, becoming cornerstone of Phoenix marketing philosophy. True resilience comes not from avoiding difficulty, but from transforming it into foundation for something new. My company continued attracting clients facing transitions and setbacks, our approach informed by personal experience with both loss and recovery. Samantha and I will never return to the relationship we had before her betrayal and my departure. That connection, based partly on my support of her and mutual family history, has been replaced by something more complex, but potentially more durable. We approach each other now as adults who have seen both the best and worst in each other, with no illusions but genuine commitment to maintaining connection. The sister who once doubled my rent and called me a burden now consults me on business decisions and acknowledges my expertise. The sister who once disappeared without warning now maintains clear communication about boundaries and expectations. We have become, if not what we were, then perhaps what we needed to be all along, equals with respect for each other's separate journeys. As I reflect on the path from that painful morning when I drove away from what had been home to today, hosting family gatherings in space entirely my own, the lesson seems clear. Sometimes losing what we believe essential creates space for discovering what truly matters. Sometimes broken relationships, like broken businesses, can be reconstructed into forms stronger and more authentic than their original versions. Have you ever had a relationship that needed to break before it could heal properly? What boundaries have you established with family members to protect your well-being while maintaining connection? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story of resilience and rebuilding resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of transformation. Remember that sometimes the most painful endings create space for the most meaningful beginnings. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find strength in your own moments of necessary departure and courageous return.